we are going to be opening the event now with Jassi Chadha, who is the President and CEO of Axtria.
Good morning, everyone. Great to see everyone here. After a long break, we're back here. Welcome. With the theme, when I first reviewed the conference theme in terms of pharma's evolving purpose of human-centric and digital and agile and being innovative, the first question that came to me was that as leaders, what can we do to make this a reality? Obviously, we know what we have to do. We have to engage with the patients. That's a simple thing. We have to understand their needs and their experiences. The question is, how do we make this happen? So when you look at the engagement of pharma with the patients in a recent survey, what we find is that actually only 28% or 28 out of 100 is the score that the consumers, the patients would actually give to the pharma. And a third of them don't even know the name of the pharma company. Look, we have had patient centricity as a key theme in our business for quite some time. We talk about, how do we engage with the customer? How do we treat them better? But the question is, are our organizations set up to deal with the patients in a holistic manner? What we find is that we have created a lot of silos with our own organization, and we hope that we can actually evolve with the patient. So the question is, what does the history teach us about how we started this journey and how did we engage with the patients? So this is how it started. This is a depiction of the first apothecary in Baghdad in the 8th century. And if you look at how the original pharmacies started, they had limited tools, and they were creating their own compounds, and they were basically figuring out the right treatment for the patient on a one-on-one basis. And this is how we started with treating our patients. However, as we industrialized and we scaled our production, and what we realized is that we have actually made a lot of progress in treating the patients by doubling the life expectancy of the patients over the last 100 years. However, we have actually moved away from the patient. And for us, the patient engagement has become a secondary purpose. And in some ways, the profits have actually taken the center stage in our businesses. So a way to visualize where we as pharma are today, in some ways we are behind a firewall. So when you look at the different partners who are actually engaging with the patients, there are a lot of people who can have access to the patient, but pharma has actually not invested enough to get close to the patients. And we have to interact with the patients to have a better understanding of what their expectation is from us. So when you look at the patient journey, and patient journey has been a key focus for us in identifying the biomarkers to how the disease is progressing, and all the way to the patient access and the support. And we also talk about the omnichannel patient engagement, but it's not covering the end-to-end journey of the patient. It is siloed within our own organization structures. And when you look at the commercial organizations which actually have the opportunity to enable us to get closer to the patients, they are still not really being very effective. So what is the patient expectation from us? Look, the patient 360 as we view it is actually defined in our own view is outdated. When you look at the when you look at the needs of the patient is very clear. They want to go beyond just the treatment. They are interested in prevention. They're interested in early diagnosis. They want the treatment to be customized to their biology. They want an ongoing education. They want an emotional support. They want all of those things, and they want to control their own health. So, however, to the contrary to the negative sentiment I talked about earlier, where the patients don't have a good experience with the pharma companies, we as pharma have the opportunity to engage better with the patient. And the question is, are we ready? So clearly, patients have told us that they want to go beyond when we treat them when they're sick. And we want to basically go and expand our horizons and actually become more expansive from pre-diagnosis to post-treatment. And the fact is that we as industry are doing very little to get access to that information and that data to basically enable us to get closer to the patients. So what are the key building blocks that we need to build this patient-first approach? The first starting point here is that we need to look at our own organization design and our patient-first culture within our organization. And then we need to basically understand what the patient needs across the value chain are. From there, we need to basically break down the silos that we have internally, but also be outward focused and actually build the partnerships with the external ecosystem. And that's when we will actually have access to the patients. And each of these building blocks require a pretty heavy investment in digital tech and infrastructure, and that's what is going to enable us to get close to the patients. So when you look at when we look at our own purpose statements, and every pharma life sciences companies talks about improving and empowering and transforming patient lives. But the question is that reflected in our own internal organization design? Our current designs are basically, split between discovery and clinical and manufacturing and supply chain and regulatory, commercial, market access, and so on. But basically, where is this function that is focused on the patients? The good news is that we have a number of people within our own organization that actually have the understanding of engaging with the patients, but and even some companies even have the chief patient officers at many of the companies, but they are focused more in terms of, or they're in a box focused on a part of the patient engagement of the patient journey. So what we need to do is to basically have a reorg of our organization, but also have a patient-first culture. And that's where you basically start actually understanding how you're going to engage with the patients and serve them better. So when you look at once the org design and the culture has been put in place, it becomes easier for us to understand and define a patient engagement strategy. So the key elements of strategy have to include a mindset that we're going to co-create our solutions with the patient. And instead of actually doing a one-way drug development and outreach. And we must be able to basically capture the data, understand the patient touch points across all different touch points, leverage the patient insights from the value chain, from R&D to sales to strategy, and also enable the partnerships with the healthcare ecosystem. So that's how we're going to basically break down these firewalls. This is what will enable us to personalize our care and improve the experience of the patients. So when you look at this patient holistic viewpoint, the question comes: how are we measuring the patient engagement? A big part of making this happen is the partnership in enabling patient-first approach. So the partnerships first have to start at home. The patient's own internal, the pharma's own internal silos must be broken, and so that the true mapping of the patient and the journey and patient needs can be established. So, when you look at the various touch points, we need to explore the partnerships with the stakeholders within the healthcare ecosystem, which will help us to enable these patients with their data. And we see a lot of examples of this happening in the industry, where the insurance companies are going out and actually getting integrated into the healthcare delivery. We see a lot of the distributors basically going out and actually establishing touch points to engage directly with the patients. And pharma has kind of taken approach of more of a hands-off approach of actually engaging directly with the patients. So when you look at the access to the information that is available through this whole value chain across different touch points, the building blocks will enable us to get access to this, the data for the holistic patient journey. But it has to start from preclinical to commercial and beyond. And this would also include a lot of patient lifestyle data as well. So when you look at the whole concept of omnichannel patient engagement, the proximity matters. Look, we can focus a lot more on the digital and the indirect proximity by actually investing into collecting this data and creating the digital profiles or personas of the patients, which is very important and critical to understand the whole patient journey. But we have to actually get in front of the patient and to understand their needs and transform their experiences. And at this point, we feel that there is very little conversation is happening where we are actually driving physical proximity to the patients. So when you look at, what is the framework that could be used to understand the patient engagement, we first have to basically understand where we are today. So, if you can have the right focus and based upon where you are on the stage, that will actually help everyone get started. So now, when we and we are intentionally recommending more of a flywheel because the world is evolving, the patient needs are evolving, our own business is evolving. It can be kind of a staircase kind of a thing where you actually get to a certain point, and if the business changes, you have to start all over again. So we must innovate to keep the patient engagement momentum going, and go through these stages so that we can actually, the ultimate goal is to have a one-on-one interaction with the patient. So as I kind of wrap up this talk, so what are some of the key takeaways? So the key takeaway is that how do we operationalize patient empathy within our organizations? So as we go back to our day-to-day routine, at the highest level, we must operationalize the patient empathy across the whole pharma organization. So as I mentioned earlier, this involves elevating and empowering the chief patient officers. It requires a patient proximity by eliminating the firewall so that we can co-create things with them. We need to democratize the patient insights with the investments in digital and data. So we understand the personalized need of each of the patients, as well as finally, we must put systems and processes in place to measure our patient engagement across efforts with KPIs, like a net patient scores. So we all know what an NPS is, but in this case, it's net patient score. So now, one of my favorite quotes is from Steve Jobs, and it talks about the importance of getting close to the customers. And in our industry, it's actually pretty unique, right? The definition of a customer in most industry is someone who decides to buy your product, pays for it, and consumes it. And in our industry, the ultimate consumption is by the patients. And if we consider that to be our customer, how do we get close to them. And we believe that the commercial organizations of the pharma are the ones which have the opportunity to get closest to the customers. And we all know that patients are the most important customer for us. So the question is, do we have the vision, the investments, the partnerships, the leadership to again go directly to the patient? And same as the industry, and this is how we started as an industry long time ago in the 8th century. So with that, I want to thank you for listening to our thoughts and our conversation, and happy to turn over to see. I think we have some time for some questions as well.
Jassi, thank you very much. Everyone, you can see back in the app, please get those questions coming in. And we have, I think, a bit of time now. So first off, Jassi, what are some examples of innovative patient engagement that you've seen?
Yeah. So I think there are, some of the best examples are the ones that are happening in the diagnostic area. But as basically, you look at some of the markets like, in diabetes care and monitoring and so on, and then drug delivery, the companies are getting a lot closer to the patient. But it's actually a single view of that patient, only through their lens. So the foundation of this thing is that there are few companies which are going beyond the starting stage of getting to the next stage. And the foundation for that is actually having a single view of your customer, which is patient, across multiple channels. And so these companies are actually collecting their own data, but augmenting it through multiple different sources to basically have a better view. So this is where some of the lab data is coming in, clinical data is coming in, and so on. And those are some of the things. So the best examples we see are in the chronic care management, where the patients are taking self-control, or in the diagnostic space.
Brilliant. And we've got a couple more coming in. I can see people asking about the NPS. So maybe if you could just talk a little bit more about the net patient score and maybe give us an example as well, please.
Yeah. So, NPS in some ways is very similar to the Net Promoter Score that we're all very familiar with. But in this particular case, it's for the patient. So the question is, how are we basically tracking and measuring our engagement with the patients? And are we basically even going out and actually asking them about, what their experience has been through our care and so on. So, obviously you can go out and actually do market, surveys. The question is, are we actually having a continuous engagement with the patient to track and measure that score?
Mm-hmm. And then I'm going to do this one last, and then we will thank you. What metrics for patient engagement are most used?
So I think the most important one ultimately is, if you go back and actually look at it from the patient's perspective, right? What they want a personalized care. They want have to have access. They want, obviously, the outcome is very important. But also, it's basically the experience of the patient post-treatment also becomes very important. So there are a lot of different facets of the patient engagement and the things that we have to track and measure that goes beyond just the treatment and the outcomes part of it, which obviously are very important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Jassi, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much.